Describe the mode of reproduction in a named fungus. 5 marks. Rhizopus, reproduce asexually. Kcse 2018 essay, question 7 and 8. 7. A. Describe the mode of reproduction in a named fungus. 5 marks. Rhizopus, reproduce asexually by sporulation. Spores develop from a single cell forming sporangium, which bursts on maturity releasing spores, which are dispersed by air currents to form new generation if it lands on a suitable medium. Yeast, reproduce asexually by budding. Parent cell forms a bud. This is followed by division of the nucleus into two. One of the nuclei moves into the bud, which grows and develops into a new cell. 7. B. Describe the role of hormones in the human menstrual cycle. 15 marks. After or at the onset of menstruation, the pituitary gland secretes follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. The follicle-stimulating hormone causes the Graafian follicle to develop into the ovary and stimulate the ovary tissues to secrete estrogen hormone. Estrogen brings about healing of the endometrium. Its concentration increases to a level which stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to secrete luteinizing hormone, LH, and stops further secretion of follicle-stimulating hormone. The luteinizing hormone stimulates the maturation of the Graafian follicle. Luteinizing hormone also stimulates the Graafian follicle to release an ovum into the fallopian tube, which causes ovulation. Luteinizing hormone also stimulates the remains of the Graafian follicle to form a corpus luteum in the ovary. The corpus luteum is stimulated by the luteinizing hormone to produce progesterone. Progesterone then stimulates the thickening of the endometrium, in readiness for implantation. As progesterone level increases, it inhibits the pituitary gland from secreting follicle-stimulating hormone. Further, increase in progesterone level inhibits the pituitary gland from secreting luteinizing hormone. This causes the corpus luteum to degenerate. This reduces the amount of progesterone. The sudden drop in secretion of progesterone causes menstruation to occur, and the cycle is repeated. 8. Describe what happens to a meal rich in proteins along the alimentary canal from ingestion to egestion. 20 marks. The meal is ingested through the mouth. In the mouth, it is chewed to break it into smaller particles. It is then mixed with saliva from salivary gland. The food is then rolled by the tongue into boluses, and pushed down into the esophagus. The boluses move by peristalsis into the stomach. Constant contractions and relaxations of the stomach walls mix the food, giving rise to chyme. The presence of food in the stomach further stimulates production of gastric juice, which contains pepsinogen and renin. Pepsinogen is activated to pepsin by hydrochloric acid, contained in the gastric juice. Pepsin breaks down proteins to peptides. Renin converts the protein, caseinogen in milk to casein. It is then pushed into the duodenum through the pyloric sphincter. The pancreatic juice in the duodenum contains trypsin, which digests proteins into peptides. In the ileum, intestinal juice is secreted. It contains peptidase enzymes, which breaks down polypeptides into amino acids. It also contains polypeptidase enzyme which breaks down peptides to amino acids, completing the process of digestion of the proteins. The amino acids are absorbed into the bloodstream through the epithelia of the villi, and the capillary walls into the bloodstream by active transport. The undigested proteins pass through to the colon where water is absorbed, leaving a semi-solid waste material being passed on to the rectum, then out through the anus. Thank you for learning in our channel. Subscribe and share. Kcse 2019 essay, question 7 and 8. 7. Giving examples, describe the following interactions among organism, 20 marks. Predator-prey relationship. A predator is an animal that hunts other animals for food, example, a dog and a hare. Preys devise survival mechanisms in their habitats not to be killed, to survive and reproduce. To this end, they run faster because they have strong hind leg muscles, camouflage with environments, mimic the predators, or strong sense of smell to detect the predator. Some emit chemicals that turn away from the predators, while others, like porcupines, use spines to fight off predators. On the other hand, predators also devise means to be able to survive in such an ecosystem. For instance, running faster and camouflaging with the environment, predators have sharp eyesight. Some produce poison to kill their prey, while others have sharp, strong and long claws. Symbiosis is a long-term association between two organisms of different species where the two mutually benefit from each other, for example, the bacteria in the rumen or colon of herbivores, which help the herbivores digest cellulose. As they are sheltered by the herbivores, the bacteria found in the human digestive system are also sheltered by humans as they ensure microbial balance. The nitrogen-fixing bacteria on the root nodules of leguminous plants benefit from the shelter offered by the plants, as they facilitate conversion of free atmospheric nitrogen into forms that can be readily absorbed by the plants. Parasitism is a kind of association where one organism, the parasite, benefits while the other, the host, loses, also called antagonistic antipathetic symbiosis, for example, a tick sucking blood from a cow, making the cow to be anemic and malnourished. Parasites can be external or internal. Endoparasites, for instance, liver fluke, suck blood and nutrients from the host and can cause death or bodily harm on the internal organs of the host, including blocking blood vessels. 8. Explain the effects of increased physical activity on the following organ systems. 20 marks. A. Heart. Increased physical activity results in increased heartbeat. Increased blood pressure pumps more blood to the peripheral blood vessels at a faster rate, supplying oxygen and nutrients for continued respiration to yield energy needed to sustain the vigorous contraction and relaxation of muscles during the physical activity. Carbon, 4, oxide and other metabolic wastes produced during the process are also transported to the relevant excretory organs for elimination. The wastes, if left to accumulate, can poison cells or cause fatigue. B. Lungs. The increased breathing rate during the physical activity influences the lungs' increase in volume, to take in more amount of air retained or expelled during the activity. The lungs expand to take in more air and deflate to expel more carbon, 4, oxide. More oxygen is taken in during exercise to sustain the process of muscle respiration to produce the required energy for the constant muscle contraction and relaxation. C. Kidneys. Kidneys maintain the blood plasma pH and osmotic balance by eliminating excess hydrogen ions that accumulate, for instance, through the production of carbon, 4, oxide during exercise. To maintain the osmotic balance, the kidneys conserve sodium ions and reabsorb water in the kidney tubules, leading to reduction in the volume of urine produced. During exercises, the kidneys tend to filter out more urea, releasing more in the urine. D. Skin. Due to the increased muscle activity during physical exercises, one sweats more, eliminating nitrogenous wastes and excess water through the sweat pores, cooling the body. After water in the sweat evaporates, the increased internal body temperature also leads to the dilation of superficial blood vessels, leading to loss of excess heat by radiation or convection. The hair on the skin surface also lie flat to allow for loss of heat by radiation or convection. Thank you for learning in our channel. Subscribe and share. Kcse 2021 essay, question 7 and 8. A. Explain the role of the placenta during pregnancy. 10 marks. The placenta plays the respiratory, excretory, nutritive and immunological functions. Exchange of respiratory gases, supply of oxygen to the fetus tissues and removal of carbon, 4, oxide from the fetus takes place across the placenta. Food substances are also released into the fetus from the mother's system through the placenta. The placenta also serves as a barrier, preventing the mixing of maternal and fetus blood and harmful substances from the mother. Some hormones needed for the fetus development are also passed from the mother to the fetus through the placenta. Some antibodies needed for the protection of the fetus from infections are also passed from the mother to the focus through the placenta. Some waste products, like urea, are also passed from the fetus through the placenta. B. Explain features and mechanisms that hinder self-pollination and self-fertilization. 10 marks. Dichogamy is mechanisms where either the male or female parts of the plant reproductive organs ripen at different times in some plants. Protandry is when stamens ripen earlier and anthers release their pollen before the stigma is mature, while protogyny refers to where the stigma matures earlier, hence becomes ready to receive pollen. Grains. Self-sterility is where pollen grains cannot germinate on the stigma of the same plant but only germinate on a different plant of the same species, hindering self-pollination. Heterostele is a condition where stigma is higher or above the stamen, making it impossible for the pollen to land, accumulate, and fertilize the ovules of the same flower. Dioecious, plants have reproductive parts located separately on different plants of the same species, discouraging self-pollination. Monoecious. Plants have the reproductive parts located at different parts on the same plant, discouraging self-pollination. 8.A Describe how the xylem tissue is structurally adapted to its functions. 5 marks. Xylem tissue consists of xylem vessels and tracheids. Xylem vessels are tubular with hollow structures running continuously from the roots through the stem to the leaves. Its walls are strengthened with lignin, preventing them from collapsing. The xylem vessels have bordered pits, to allow passage of water. Tracheids have chisel-shaped ends and perforated cross walls, to allow movement of water. B. Describe the functions of blood in the human body. 15 marks. Blood plasma transports vitamins, mineral salts, and digested food materials to tissues of the body where they are needed. Hormones are also transported by blood plasma from the secretory sites to the target tissues or organs. The plasma also transports antibodies throughout the body for defense against pathogens. Plasma also transports enzymes to tissues where they are required to catalyze certain reactions. Waste products and carbon, 4, oxide, are also transported in the plasma to the excretory organs. Plasma also plays a thermoregulatory role. By distribution of heat, erythrocytes are important in the transportation of oxygen by hemoglobin from the lungs to different body tissues. And carbon, 4, oxide from respiring tissues to the lungs for purification. Leukocytes protect the body against infections from bacteria or viruses. Platelets play a role in clotting of blood, protect damaged body tissues, preventing excessive loss of blood. Thank you for learning in our channel. Subscribe and share. How are xerophytes and hydrophytes adapted to their habitats? Xerophytes. Thick waxy cuticle, minimize water loss. Leaves are folded and reduced in size, to minimize stomatal transpiration. Sunken stomata, to reduce rate of transpiration. Thick succulent leaves, side branches, or stems, for water storage. Shedding of leaves during the dry periods, to reduce surface area exposed for transpiration. Reverse stomatal rhythm, prevent excessive loss of water. Deep penetrating roots, to absorb water from deep below the surface. Superficial roots, to absorb surface water runoff. Leaves covered in scales hairs, to trap a moist layer of air, to reduce the rate of transpiration. Drought-resistant seeds, that remain dormant till favorable weather resumes. 52. Underground organs, corms bulbs, for storage of water and reproduction. Most stomata located on the lower leaf surface, to avoid exposure to direct light, to reduce evaporation. Reduced number of stomata, to reduce the rate of transpiration. Hydrophytes. Stomata on the upper surface of leaves, to provide a large surface area for gaseous exchange, and loss of excess water. Poorly developed roots that lack root hairs, to reduce void absorption of water. Parenchyma tissue in leaves, stems and roots, to store air, and for buoyancy. Deeply dissected leaves, to provide a large surface area for absorption of light. Highly sensitive, and numerous chloroplasts, for photosynthesis. 53. Greatly reduced vascular bundle, to avoid absorption of water. Flowers raised above the water, to allow for pollination. Lack of a cuticle or very thin cuticle, for faster loss of water. 4. Outline the differences between wind and insect-pollinated flowers. Flowers of wind-pollinated plants are small, with no bracts, sepals, or petals. If present, the petals are small, inconspicuous, often white or green in color. While insect-pollinated flowers are large, often with brightly colored petals, bracts, or inflorescence, to attract insects. Flowers of wind-pollinated plants have no nectaries and no scent, while flowers of insect-pollinated plants are scented, and produce nectar. In wind-pollinated flowers, the anthers are large, and loosely attached on a flexible filament, to allow pollen grains to be readily released when wind blows. 54. On the anthers, while anthers of insect-pollinated flowers are usually small, and firmly attached on the filaments, this ensures that the insect rub against the anther, as they crawl into the flower, collecting pollen grains onto their bodies. In wind-pollinated flowers, the stigmas are feathery. Widely spread, this acts as nets to catch pollen as it floats through the air, while in insect-pollinated flowers the stigmas are small, smooth, and sticky, and are also enclosed. This feature ensures that pollen grains from the body of an insect stick onto it. In wind-pollinated flowers, the flowers are simple with no particular shape, while some flowers that are insect-pollinated have petals with grooves or dark lines, leading from the petal border to the nectaries. Some have tubular or funnel-shaped corolla, and landing platforms, to guide the insect to the source of the nectar for their food. Flowers of wind-pollinated plants are either on long stalks above the leaves, or develop from flower buds that open before the leaf buds, to increase the flower exposure to air currents, while flowers of insect-pollinated plants are on short stalks, often enclosed by the corolla. 2017 essay, question 7 and 8. 7. Explain the importance of protecting the forest ecosystem with reference to the following 20 marks. A. Climate change. Forest ecosystem promote regular rainfall which prevents desertification, keeps biogeochemical cycles going, for example hydrological, act as windbreakers. Forest ecosystem keeps earth temperatures cool, hence reduce global warming. B. Biodiversity. Forest ecosystem conserve diverse flora and fauna, conserve genetic variety, prevent extinction of rare species. Forest ecosystem is a source of research and employment. Forest ecosystem is aesthetic, hence attracting tourism for foreign exchange, have impact on culture, provides food and shelter for other organisms and man, source of oxygen. C. Biotechnology. Forest ecosystem provide natural medicines, provide paper and related byproducts when regulated. Forest ecosystem provide timber when regulated. Provides products used in other industries such as tannin, wax, rubber, oil, and honey. D. Water conservation. Forest ecosystem increases groundwater, adds water into rivers, lakes, and permanency in existing water bodies. Forest ecosystem are water catchment areas. E. Pollution. Forest ecosystem minimize soil pollution by ensuring cover against surface runoff. Vegetation clean the soil surface by absorbing nutrients from decomposed matter. Forest ecosystem provides large-scale cleanup of polluted air. 8. Describe how the mammalian eye is structurally adapted to its function. 20 marks. Has the eyelid, which protects the cornea from mechanical, physical or chemical damage. Eyelid protects the eye from bright light by reflex action. Sclera or sclerotic layer, which contains inelastic collagen fibers which protects and maintains shape of the eyeball. Cornea, transparent to allow light pass through, has convex shape to refract light towards the retina. Conjunctiva has epithelium for protection of cornea. Has goblet cells for secretion of mucus for lubrication. Choroid or choroid layer, rich in blood vessels, highly vascularized, supplying the retina with nutrients and oxygen, remove metabolic wastes. Covered with black pigment cells to prevent reflection of light within the eye. Ciliary muscles have contractile muscles that contract or relax to alter the shape of the lens during accommodation. Lens, transparent to allow light pass through, elastic to allow adjustment of the shape of lens, biconvex to refract light or focus light onto retina. Iris has radial and circular muscles to alter diameter or size of the pupil, hence controlling the amount of light entering the eye. Contain pigments that absorb light and stop it getting through to the retina. Vitreous humor, transparent to allow light pass through, is a fluid that refracts light rays onto the retina and maintains shape of the eyeballs that supports the eye. Retina contains cones, rods, or photoreceptors to perceive light. Optic nerve has sensory neurons or nerve cells that transmit impulses to the brain. Fovea centralis contains high concentration of cones for visual acuity or accurate vision. Pupil, a hole in the iris, lets in light. Suspensory ligaments are fibers that hold lens in position. Aqueous humor, transparent to allow light to pass through, is a fluid exerting hydrostatic pressure to maintain the shape of the eyeball. Blind spot, a point where the optic nerve leaves the eye to the brain, passage of blood vessels since has no photoreceptors. Thank you for learning in our channel. Subscribe.